Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Laces Out podcast, our NFL podcast. And we've got a guest. That's right, a guest means guest predictions. We're trying out something new this week. Well, we tried it last week, so it's not that new, but it's still new because it's never been done before, but we did it last week. Stay tuned till the end. There's a new segment. It'll all come clear if you stick with it. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Share the podcast around, people. If you've got an NFL fan in your life, send them this podcast. They're almost definitely going to love it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces out.
Recording in progress.
Ooh, there we go. It's kicked off. It's all happening. So, I always say week in, week out on this here Laces Out podcast, the NFL podcast for the CookieCast Network, that there's supposed to be a guest, and there never is a guest, and then every now and then there's a guest, and then this week I was like, there's definitely a guest. Myself and my glamorous co-host, Mr. Paul Williams, are joined by James Forrester Gray. How are you, sir?
Very well. And your good selves?
Yeah, can't complain.
No one listens when we do they? So you might as well.
There's absolutely no point.
That would generally be the upshot of that. Yeah, that is true.
In fact, I think this is the first time I've seen you since you were made an honest man.
Indeed, it will.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. It's very kind. Yeah, it's been covered on several podcasts between then. The sheer terrible decision that Mrs. Williams has taken, but of course that's neither here nor there.
That's on her ultimately. Hope you're enjoying it. It's a nice place to be.
Yes, it's absolutely no different to what it was before.
Wait, the piece of paper doesn't change things? I've been lied to all this time.
Crazy.
It makes the overdraft bigger, I found.
well.
For the wedding.
Then I'm good, thanks. So, week 6 is in the bag. Staring down the barrel of week 7. I believe that we are done with English style American football. I believe there are other international games to come, but not this week. We've got all sorts of stuff to get through. We've got to talk about last week. We've got to talk about this week. We've got to talk about any stats that came up from last week. We need to do some season-long predictions for James. We've got, I said next week's predictions, and if there's time, we'll fit in a little something from last week. And everything in between. I will hand the reins firmly over to my co-host, who will inform us of the movers, the shakers, the winners, the losers, and how last week panned out. Paul, take her away.
I will indeed, Mr. Cook. However, as obviously we have got a guest this week, we will dive straight in with the season-long predictions.
So you know what you're doing.
Mr. James. So, I'm going to do this about face. So normally I'd have a Super Bowl pick, but I'm actually going to go for the regular season league MVP selection. Who do you think will pick up the honour this season, James?
Oof. So I've got my bets in on the defensive one. I reckon that's going to be Myles Garrett as a little dark horse.
Okay.
But, for your season-long MVP, nobody's had an unblemished record so far, have they? Everyone's had their little question marks.
Strangely enough, at the moment, the front runner is probably CJ Stroud. as it stands at the moment.
If he doesn't
Probably
get
the
offensive rookie of the year, I'd be
probably
amazed.
the quarterback with the cleanest record.
Didn't he throw an interception last week though?
Did he? Did he
I
throw
think
his
he
first?
might have done. Yeah.
I missed that at the weekend.
A pretty tidy record though. I think I'm going to go off the beaten track. Normally it's the QB, obviously. I reckon I'm going to go C-Mac. I think he's just going to go mental in the last half of the year. Or break every single ligament in his body.
It would be a nice change of pace for them to actually give it to a non-quarterback for a change. At this point, would the last one been Adrian Peterson? Maybe.
Ooh, not sure.
Potentially.
He seems a sort.
Yeah, it's that one where they basically need to change the name of it. This comes up on another podcast that I listen to about the NFL so many times, where they just say they basically just need to change it and just say best quarterback, best defensive non-quarterback player, best defensive player. And they should change it and have 3 different awards.
Absolutely.
But because obviously they still have the MVP and they still have offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year. So if you're giving it to the league MVP, surely they would default as one of the first 2. But that's neither here nor there. But as it stands at the moment, I think that's probably the front runner of all the picks that we've got in so far. So obviously James has picked Christian McCaffrey. Going back through the guests, Stu picked Patrick Mahomes, a fairly sensible pick. Matt picked Josh Allen. I'll skip over Andy's and come back to that in a second. I picked Joe Burrow,
I'm fine.
which as the weeks tick by seems like a more and more sensible pick. Not. Andy's pick of Aaron Rodgers, not looking particularly healthy.
Why do we have to do this every week? Why is it every week? We know.
Not every week. It's just when the guests are on.
Yeah.
I do have the slight advantage of picking like 6 weeks into the season.
And
as opposed to like
come
6 snaps into the season.
That'll come up later in the podcast because we were talking about something last week, and I was like, as each week goes by, you for a certain pick, you're just closer and closer to a guarantee. So yes, I am waiting for the point in the season where we get to repick because that'll be my time to shine.
Well, we'll work it out. We'll work out at what point we've played exactly half of the games of the season because that's normally covered on Red Zone.
I mean,
they do normally drop that stat.
Obviously, Aaron Rodgers was seen on the field, unaided to a degree, and throwing footballs. That's all I'm saying.
It's amazing what ayahuasca can do to a man.
Yeah.
He's probably just like chewed some sort of like weird tree bark and then rubbed it on his Achilles or something like that, and that's what's made him magically better. So that's your regular season MVP selection. Now I just need your AFC versus NFC Super Bowl selection, please.
I'm going to go for 2/3 of the peak 80s British NFL fandom, and I'm going to go Dolphins in the AFC, and I'm going to go Niners in the NFC.
Oh, at this point in the season, I love that pick. That is delicious. I know
Just
Paul
love to see
will
those two offenses
absolutely
go against each other in the last
50%
bit.
of
That'll be
that.
cracking.
Surprisingly enough, that is the first time that the Dolphins have been put forward as a suggestion. Don't hate it.
I think they've got to stay healthy, and it's going to be seat of the pants stuff. But it'll be damn fun to watch it happen.
So every single week so far, I think we've mentioned that the Dolphins look great week in, week out, but they're one step away from imploding. Yeah. And you love to watch it and you love to see it, but you do watch it a bit like, is it this week? Is it going to happen this week? Is it going to... No, we're good. Is
Tua's brain going to turn to mush? Is the basic concern, isn't it?
I think watching that, because that was just last season. It was like watching that whole thing unfold was like, I don't want to. Don't make me watch anymore. I don't like it.
There's two concussions almost back to back, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't. They weren't too far apart. It was.
There was that whole.
Not
there was the whole
best.
twitching hand thing, and
Was it posting? They call it.
Yeah, something like that. It didn't look. It didn't look good. And obviously, he covered. He said in the off season, didn't he, that there was times where he thought he potentially might have to call it a day altogether. Thankfully, that's not the case. So hopefully, he'll be playing for many, many years to come. So, of the Dolphins and the 49ers, which of the two would you put forward as the winner of the game?
I'm thinking Niners personally.
Yeah,
They seem a
unsurprisingly,
sensible one, but
not the first person to put forward the San Francisco 49ers.
you have had Matthew on, haven't you? So.
And of the San Francisco 49ers, who would you put forward as the game's MVP?
I've probably got to go for the slightly safer one of the QB and like Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. He's
Mr.
just shown
Brockles.
himself, if not the greatest QB of all time, he's just a solid, reliable, good player who will lead a team to what they need to do.
It's that thing in it where, whilst he's not an incredible quarterback, he's exactly kind of what they need for their team. He's a good game manager, and he's a good system quarterback for the way that they set up their offense.
all I keep hearing is that he's a by the numbers quarterback, and I'm like, why does it sound like you're saying it like it's a bad thing? The 49ers needed a by the numbers quarterback from where they were to bring them to where they are now. Everything, I mean, barring last week, everything seems to be clicking. It seems to be exactly what they needed. So why does it feel like when it said as a bad thing? Because, look at their record at this point.
You've got someone who's very, very good at coaching quarterbacks, and I think as soon as someone has someone who can teach them to do exactly what they need to do in a particular place, they get labelled a system quarterback as opposed to someone who is very coachable and has the skill set to adapt to what they're asked to do, and a coach who knows what they're good at.
Pretty much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is James's season-long predictions. We've got a Dolphins-Niners Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers coming on top, Brock Purdy to be named the game's MVP, and Christian McCaffrey to be named the regular season league MVP. Those have been added to the book alongside myself, Mr. Cook, Mr. Woodmansey, and Mr. Moore's picks from earlier in the season. So we'll move swiftly on to Week 6's picks, and obviously last week's guest was the stats mistress herself, Leanne Davies. She was the guest. She provided her 15 game selections alongside myself and Mr. Cook. So 15 points up for grabs from last week. In reverse order, with 10 out of 15 selections correct, it is indeed last week's guest. So Leanne was let down by the 49ers at the Cleveland Browns, the Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Bucs at home to the Lions, the Eagles at the Jets, and the Chargers at home to the Cowboys. Second, with 11 of 15 selections correct, it was Mr. Andrew Cook being let down by the Falcons at home to the Commanders, the 49ers at the Browns, the Saints at the Texans, and the Eagles at the Jets, which means taking the win this week with 12 of 15 selections correct is myself getting my first full point of the season. I was let down by the Falcons at home to the Commanders, the 49ers at the Browns, and the Eagles at the Jets. Everything else came in for me successfully, so I was very happy with that. So, season-wise, the guest is still leading with 2.5 points. Mr. Cook has 2 points, and I've managed to get 1.5 points on the board. All that left us with there was the side bet from week 6. So, again, for those who are new to this concept, this is the part of the podcast where myself and Andy select 4 teams each from the week's games. As soon as that team is selected as the banker win, that game is removed from selection. So, as we went into week 6, we were both tied on 13 out of a possible 20 correct points. So, Andy started off the week well by taking the Chiefs to beat the Broncos. Very nice. He followed that up with the Ravens to beat the Titans. 2 from 2 so far. Sadly, Mr. Cook was let down by the 2 previously unbeaten teams, as he had the 49ers beating the Browns and the Eagles beating the Jets. Some would say that is very much a coupon buster. And sadly for Mr. Cook, that wasn't the case. So Andy moves on to 15 from a possible 24 selections. I, on the other hand, had rather the good week, as I had the Dolphins to beat the Panthers, the Rams to beat the Cardinals, sorry James, the Bills to beat the Giants, and the Lions to beat the Buccaneers. So I had the clean sweep, all 4 selections correct. So that moves me on to 17 points for the season for the side bet. That's the predictions done for week 6. That just leaves us with the stats to go through week 6, and then we have got a nice bow tied up and put around week 6. Who begins with the stats this week, Mr. Cook?
It is I. The Stats Mistress got us some lovely, delicious stats, which I have shared amongst my counterparts here. I will start with the stats and then move on to Paul. This is the Week 6 stats for the 2023 season, brought to us by the Stats Mistress, brought to her. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Nate Davis, as it usually is, but is not credited here. So, stat number 1, Week 6, and now 0 undefeated teams remain. The Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers both suffering stunning upsets on Sunday. Just seem to keep rubbing that one in, don't we? Number 2. Before leaving with an oblique injury, McCaffrey scored a touchdown in his 15th consecutive game, including playoffs, tying him for the second longest streak in league history. He needs to extend his run on another 2 games to catch Baltimore Colts legend Lenny Moore. Number 3. Philadelphia's first ever loss to the New York Jets felt a touch fluky on a day when the reigning NFC champs turned the ball over 4 times against a defense that didn't even have all-pro CB cornerback Sauce Gardner concussion. Among several other injuries, it was the Jets' first win over the Eagles after losing the first 12 matchups between the franchises. Philly quarterback Jalen Hurts matched a career high with 3 interceptions. My final stat for this week is number 4. The Detroit Lions are 5-1, their best record to start a season since 2011, after thumping the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-6. Telling you, them Lions are looking good this season. Paul, over to you.
Very nice. Thank you very much. We continue. Miami finished with 424 yards on Sunday's win. Amazingly, nearly 100 shy of its league best average entering week 6. With 163 receiving yards on Sunday, Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill now has a league best 814, the most ever through 6 games during the Super Bowl era. Raheem Mostert finished with 132 total yards and 3 touchdowns on Sunday. He became the 6th player since the 1970 merger with at least 11 touchdowns through 6 games. Whew.
Mental.
The New England Patriots scored their first touchdown in 12 quarters, the equivalent of 3 games, obviously. Some minor signs of life offensively. But make no mistake, the Pats are dead in the water. Now 1-5 for the very first time under Bill Belichick, their head coach since 2000. Not looking great. Houston Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud continues to make progress in what could be a spirited race for Offensive Rookie of the Year honours in 2023. Yes, Stroud threw his first NFL interception on Sunday, but more importantly, he posted 2 more touchdown passes as his team survived the Saints 20-13. The Texans, 3-3, are at least 500 through 6 games for the first time since 2019. Stroud's first 191 passes without an interception are the longest pick-free stretch in league history to start a career. All good signs so far. The Vikes were helped by issuing Bears rookie quarterback 2, Tyson Bagent, his welcome to the NFL moment on his first drive after replacing injured starter Justin Fields. Undrafted out of Division II Shepherd University, Bagent was strip-sacked by Josh Metellus, and Minnesota's Jordan Hicks returned the fumble 42 yards for a touchdown, the decisive play in the Vikings' 19-13 victory. And my final stat, frightening sight seeing another Bills player, running back Damian Harris on Sunday night, removed from the field in an ambulance. Far more heartening to see Harris give the thumbs up sign on his way off and quickly regain movement in his extremities after absorbing a thundering hit. Obviously that'll have brought back not great memories for the Bills with the Damar Hamlin issue from last season, sadly. That's the end of my stats. Over to you, James, to, for want of a better phrase, finish us off.
Oh, to add to the Harris one, apparently he's out of hospital. It was just a neck strain. So he's doing well by all accounts.
Good to hear.
Happy news. Right, so Justin Tucker, a fan favourite of certain guests of this podcast, I understand. A blocked extra point in London prevented Baltimore Ravens kicker Justin Tucker, 6 field goals, from achieving a new career high for points in one game. Tucker had 18 of the victorious Ravens' 24 points. You can see why he's definitely worth like a 4th round in a draft, isn't he? In relief of injured Titans starter Ryan Tannehill, Tennessee's QB2 Malik Willis, he was sacked 4 times in 9 dropbacks. Continuing something of a theme, Broncos QB Russell Wilson was sacked for the 500th time in his career on Thursday night losses. Only Aaron Rodgers, 531, has been taken down more among active quarterbacks than Wilson, who's now on 501, so I snuck an extra one in there, who has been a starter for 4 fewer seasons than the 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers. That's a lot of forward in one sentence and very difficult to say for a man with a stammer. Finally, speaking of sacks, definitely a theme here. Washington Commanders QB Sam Howell has been dumped 34 times, putting him on pace to suffer a record 96 at this rate. Yet Sam Howell, for 3 touchdown passes, was on the winning side on Sunday against the Atlanta Falcons counterpart Desmond Ridder, who served up 3 second-half interceptions. It was the second time in 3 games that Ridder has had 3 turnovers, a showing sure to rekindle suggestions that Atlanta should insert ex-commander Taylor Heineke into the lineup. Or, Carson Wentz or something like that at this point, frankly. And that is all the stats I have.
Can we just check, is it time to take the Broncos out the back and,
Just old yeller it.
Yeah, old year. Two to the back, two right behind the ear, because my God, that team is.
I I genuinely can't work out whether the Broncos are just terribly run, have a quarterback that doesn't fit the system, have a head coach that's still trying to refine his feet, or basically just all of the above.
I think it's all of the above. I think realistically, Russell Wilson doesn't care anymore. I think that was quite obvious from last season. Some of the sideline photos. That sideline photo came up from last season where he sat facing one way, and the players, other players, are just staring daggers at him, and he couldn't have given less of a shit. And it's I think that's basically carried on. I saw a thing during the week that was saying that the rumours coming out of the locker room is that they're basically working towards a teardown. And it's whether at this point in time they will trade all the decent players away for picks, tank the rest of the season for more picks, and try and do a rebuild. I think there's some hefty money on at which point Russell Wilson's going to get benched, because obviously that's a big statement for, was it $250 million, $256 million or something insane like that?
I think the cap hit as well will be crazy. Have they considered just going back to that bounty gate approach? That seemed to work quite well for Peyton.
Oh man, he doesn't have Greg Williams with him this time, though, does he? So
it's a bit of a mess.
It's hard to watch. I mean, you get teams where you're like, oh, this is unfortunate and that's unfortunate. The Broncos it's actually painful experiencing it week in, week out. It's just oh man, please, can we not?
It's worrying stuff.
At least with the Cardinals, yes, they're losing. They're not a great team, but they're working hard. They're quite fun to watch. But the Broncos is just dysfunctional.
Not great. Obviously, we're starting to get into the territory of the teams that, obviously, if they're in the sort of the 1-5 hole, or even worse, if you're the Panthers or 6 and stuff like that. At what point do you consider the season to be lost, and you just sort of wrap up in cotton wool your important players and just start trotting out the backups and stuff like that? Obviously, it's come out today that Anthony Richardson's out for the rest of the season for the Colts. So obviously Gardner Minshew will be the guy moving forward for them. So do they now re-enter talks of trading away Jonathan Taylor? If he clearly doesn't want to be there, and they're probably not going to make the postseason now.
It'd be hard with that new contract, though, to trade him away, won't it?
Yeah, I mean, they literally just signed that contract, so...
Gardner Minshew's, there's definitely worse backups. I mean,
I was going to say...
He won the Super Bowl with Foles, didn't they?
Yeah, true. I mean, he's a more than competent quarterback, but obviously at the start of the season he wasn't the guy that they sort of thought would take them forward. So it'll be interesting. I think the one for me is probably the Vikings is the interesting one, because obviously they're sitting there at 2-4. Tough game this week against the 49ers. Justin Jefferson out for at least another 3 weeks, probably a bit longer depending on how his injury is. If it comes to the point where he's due back, and they're sitting there at 3-7, 2-8, whatever, very unlikely that they'll make the postseason. Do they just sit him for the rest of the season and not risk him?
Potentially, and they've always made it clear that they just do not see Kirk as their man. And do they trade him away to someone like the Jets? Maybe something like that.
That's another thing. I mean, that's the question. Obviously, the Jets is a strange one because they can't. I would imagine they can't really afford to trade for a replacement quarterback for Zach Wilson, so they kind of just have to stick with what they've got, unless they can bring in a free agent from somewhere or something like that. So At the end of the day, it's the NFL. It will be the up and down roller coaster that it always is, and more's the joy for all of us watching at home, shall we say? So that's week 6 done and dusted. We've got the game picks for week 7 for myself and Mr. Cook. James has also very kindly sent through his picks for week 7, so we'll go through those. Myself and Andy will do our side bet picks, and then Andy says, we'll do the will they make the post-season additional selections if there's time. So before we go into week 7, we are just going to take a step away, have a little refresh, cleanse ourselves, and mind, body, and spirit ready to go into week 7. So you guys don't need to do anything. We'll be right back on your feed.
I'm not sure I understand.
Don't know why that particular person was getting involved, but we'll be right back very shortly.
Recording in progress.
Welcome back in. So, as we said before, week 7 of the NFL season. So, as per the last couple of weeks, we're into bye season. So there are 6 teams on the bye this week. They are the 0-6 Carolina Panthers. So they'll be happy for the break, as it's a week where they won't lose a game. Big thumbs up. The 3-3 Houston Texans, the 4-2 Dallas Cowboys, the 3-3 New York Jets, the 2-4 Tennessee Titans, and the 3-3 Cincinnati Bengals. They all have the week off to do whatever they want. Have a party, get in the hot tub. Probably not what Mr. Cook has suggested. As the league has some rather rigorous testing, dare we suggest.
I thought they'd,
But you never know.
I thought they'd given up on all that nowadays.
Oh, absolutely not. I imagine they are still very hot on the testing, shall we say.
They need to follow in the steps of the UFC.
Yeah?
Maybe? Was it Ricky Williams who once said, I got high and forgot I wasn't supposed to get high? It's such an easy mistake to make. Like, poor lad.
It so easily happens.
I mean, yeah? Sure?
I'm speaking from a point of ignorance here, but you know.
So, week 7 begins with the Thursday night football, which sees the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. This is our first clean sweep of the week, as we've all taken the Jacksonville Jaguars to get the job done here. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate of games. These are all the 6 p.m s. We have the Lions taking on the Ravens in Baltimore. Obviously, both of these having a win in the last game. The Ravens, however, coming off the back of a game in London, so they've had to travel back across the pond to get back to play the home game against the Lions. I think me and James have potentially taken this into account and have taken the Lions to get the win here, whereas Andy thinks the Ravens with home field advantage will get the win. Next up, sees the Las Vegas Raiders travel to Chicago to take on the Bears. Me and Andy have both backed the Raiders on this one, whereas James has taken the Bears for the win.
I'd forgotten that Fields was injured. Although, how much of a disadvantage that might be, I don't actually know.
We'll see. Strange things have happened. Is he definitely out for the game, or?
Oh, he had to put his own thumb back in, like Mel Gibson's shoulder in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, that's quite grim. So the next 3 games are clean sweep games from the podcast predictions. We've got the Browns taking on the Colts in Indianapolis. We've all gone for the Browns. We've all taken, surprise, surprise, the Bills to best the Patriots in New England. And we've all taken the Commanders to get the better of the Giants in New York. The next game is one where we've got a difference of opinion, as it's the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Myself and Andy have both backed the Buccaneers to get the job done here, whereas James has taken the Falcons to bounce back. Next up, we move to the latest slate of games, where we start with the Steelers taking on the LA Rams, and we've all taken the Rams on that one. The Steelers off the back of their bye, I believe, so it should be nice and rested up. But we've all got them to struggle in Los Angeles. Next up, it's James's team, the Cardinals, travelling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks, and we've all gone for the Seahawks to get the win there. I'm assuming that's just because the Cardinals are a bit banged up. No Kyler. Although Josh Dobbs doesn't look terrible.
You know what? As a last-minute fill-in, he's done remarkably well. Fair play, lad.
Maybe a little bit too much for the Cards in this one, though. You think?
Yeah, I think that little early flurry, the promise. I think we're going to be tanking for Caleb.
Yeah, certainly seemed that way. So next up, we've got the Packers taking on the Broncos in Denver. Myself and Andy have gone for the Packers on this one. James has backed a Broncos bounce back. Interesting.
Might have just made a mistake on that one, in fairness.
Well, I mean, stranger things have happened. Last of the 9:25 games sees the Chargers taking on the Chiefs in Kansas City. Tough sledding for the Chargers. We've all backed the Chiefs. Surprise, surprise. Next up is the Sunday Night Football, which should be sneaky pick of the week game-wise, where we've got the Miami Dolphins travelling to the Eagles to take on Philadelphia. Potential Super Bowl preview of sorts, if the teams could sort of the sort of the trajectory they're both on, it could potentially be a Super Bowl matchup. I'm the only one who's backed the Eagles on this one. You both backed the Dolphins. I just think the home field advantage will be massive for Philly, personally. But
yep,
that is a terrifying place to go and play against.
I also wouldn't. I wouldn't really want to be Tua going up against that defense, because Philly's defense is pretty good. But we'll see. And then finishing off the week as the Monday Night Football game. Oh dear. Those poor old Vikings have to welcome in the San Francisco 49ers. Granted, the 49ers have got a few injury worries there, because obviously Christian McCaffrey not 100% fit, Debo not 100% fit, Trent Williams definitely not 100% fit. They'll have some concerns, but I think even without them, I think the 49ers should have enough to beat the Vikings. They obviously came up short against the Browns with the missed field goal right at the end. You'd imagine they'll have too much for the Vikings, surely.
I thought so.
So yeah, that's the Week 7 picks. A couple of differences there between myself, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Forrester Gray there. So we all haven't picked the same, so we'll get a definitive answer as to who wins the week there, in theory. All that's left is for myself and Andy to do side bets for this week. Now, obviously, for the last 3 weeks, it's been neck and neck, tied. So it's been me picking first. However, as Andy is now behind in the overall race, he now gets to choose first, or put me into bat first. Which would you like to do, Mr. Cook?
Once my ancient device loads, I will absolutely be picking first. I may even be taking one of the more recently mentioned games. Okay. Oh well, let's start right there. The Buffalo Bills to beat the New England Patriots.
And his first selection of the Buffalo Bills. In that case, I will take the Seattle Seahawks as my first selection. Once again, apologies, James. And I will follow that up with the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Los Angeles Chargers. Your second and then third selections, please, sir.
So, like I said, I may be taking one of the more recently mentioned games. I'll take the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Minnesota Vikings. Now then, looking through this week's games for this particular section of the podcast, there's some difficult picks here.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Weirdly, I would also have to look at going against some of my weekly picks to get. Okay. Yep, not seeing a lot here. I think just for pick purposes, the Green Bay Packers to beat the Denver Broncos. It's not the game I want to pick, but
I think there was a game on there that was potentially more pickable than that. So I will take it. I'll go for the Washington Commanders to beat the New York Giants. It is a divisional game, though, so you can never tell what's going to happen with that. And then it's my final selection. Oh, God, it's slim pickings. I'll take the Rams to beat the Steelers. That just leaves you for your final selection, Mr. Cook.
Right, I'm going to take the Browns to beat the Colts. It was either that or the Raiders to beat the Bears. Numbers-wise, that was probably a banker, but at the same time, either of those games could go either way, weirdly either way, so I just had to make a decision. I've got to say, this has got to be the toughest week so far.
I was just about to say, I'd be interested to see the point spread on the betting front on this one, to see which teams are favourites in these ones, because I imagine most of them will be maybe not field goal games, but certainly touchdown games. Yeah. I think for the majority of the games this week. So, just for clarification, Andy's 4 selections are the Buffalo Bills at the New England Patriots, the San Francisco 49ers at the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers at the Denver Broncos, and the Cleveland Browns at the Indianapolis Colts. 4 road teams.
I just noticed that.
I have taken the Seattle Seahawks at home to the Arizona Cardinals, the Kansas City Chiefs at home to the Los Angeles Chargers, the Washington Commanders at the New York Giants, and the Los Angeles Rams at home to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, James, a new thing we've brought in for this season is, whilst the guest doesn't really have an input on the side bet games, what we are asking is which of the 4 selections the guest feels is the closest one to being more of a banker. So, do you think Andy's selections of the Bills, the Niners, the Packers, and the Browns is better or worse than my selection of the Seahawks, the Chiefs, the Commanders, and the Rams? So if you were, if you were in like a casino setting for some sort of bizarre reason, and someone handed you the $100 chip, and you had to put it on either my selections or Andy's selections, which would you feel more comfortable putting that bet on?
It's a bit tricky, Joe. I think just the team straight up, all about Andy's. but the road games, you know what? I'll be able to chuck it on Andy's loss. Bold, but perhaps foolish.
For the third time in succession, Andy's selections come out on top in the guest side bet pick. Will it
How's
pan
that worked
that
out for previous guests?
Not terribly, I don't think.
Oh, right, okay.
In week in week 3, which was the first week, Andy got all 4 of his selections correct, whereas I only got 1 of mine correct. So it worked out very well for the guest that week. And in week 4, Stu backed Andy's, where he got 3 out of 4 against my 3 out of 4. So it's kind of worked for both of the guests so far.
I will take it.
As it would seem. So, that's the end of week 7's predictions. It just leaves Andy to sort of tie up the will they make the postseason. It's just, I'll pass back over to you to explain and see how you want to do this.
So, something that came to me one night whilst watching the football, I was like, do you reckon you could predict the post-season now? I imagine there are certain teams that you can say absolutely go into the post-season. There are some teams you like, if they win this week, they're going to have a better chance, they're going to have a better shot. But, gun to your head, could you pick the post-season right now? And I was like, actually, that's not that bad an idea. So, I mentioned it to Paul last week. As in a podcasting world, we like to try stuff. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then we drop it. Last week, Paul picked his post-season and made a note of it. And I said, if we get a guest this week, the guest can have their shot at can you pick the post-season. We're not too worried about whether it all works out for, like, you've got the right number of teams and you've got the right, AFC, NFC, all of that. We just want to know, if we give you this week's games, I'll have to go back to Paul to get the teams that are on bye. I think we'll do the bye teams first, because I think Paul's got a list of them. If we give you this team and this team, you can say neither of them are going to the postseason, one of them's going, both of them are going, and let's just see if we can work out and see who gets the closest. Now, as I said at the start of the podcast, as each week goes, the choices get easier. And we'll reach a point where we'll have to stop doing it because we'll be predicting what is already set in stone. So, it's going to run for a few weeks and we'll see. Paul, have you got the buys there?
I certainly do. So do you want me to just go through these team by team?
Go through the buys and then I'll go through the week's games. James, just say yes, no, both, neither, however you want to do it. Paul will write them down and then that'll be your picks for the post.
Let's go completely off the cuff with this.
So, the teams that are on bye, I'll just go in the order they come up on the NFL app. So, Carolina Panthers. Do you think they'll make the post?
No.
I am horrified to hear this, James. How dare you?
Such negativity.
How dare you condemn the 0-6 Carolina Panthers to not playing January football?
Will look very silly if they do.
You're an utter disgrace. how dare you? The Houston Texans.
I think they're on track for a chance, but Jags, the Colts are going to be a little bit. Nah, I think they're just going to miss out and be quite sad about it.
I think I would be inclined to agree with that one. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys.
You'd be upset if they didn't. Well, no, shut up. Maybe I wouldn't be upset if they didn't, but I think they will. So yeah, let's stick them with a tick.
So the Cowboys are a yes. The New York Jets.
Probably not.
The
They're
Tennessee
no.
Titans.
Also a no for me.
And finally, for the teams on bye this week, the Cincinnati Bengals.
I think they're going to make a little comeback with that. That division's looking really bloody tough this year, isn't it?
Certainly is. So, just to clarify there, of the 6 teams that are on bye, James is only back to 2 of those teams to make the postseason, the Cowboys and the Bengals.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start going through this week's games, and same system, I think we get it by now. The Jaguars and the Saints.
Jags and Saints. So Jags, yes. Saints, no.
Okay. Paul, you'll have to let me know if we need to slow down at all. Raiders, Bears.
No and no.
Browns, Colts.
Yes, Browns, no Colts. But I think I'm going to end up saying there's going to be 3 AFC North teams in there.
The Bills and the Patriots.
Yes, Bills, no Patriots.
Commanders, Giants.
Definitely no Giants. Commanders, no as well.
Falcons, Bucks.
Yes, Falcons, no Bucks.
Lions, Ravens.
Yes and yes.
Steelers, Rams.
No and... No and yeah. Yeah, let's go with the Rams.
Cardinals, Seahawks.
No and no.
Packers, Broncos.
Definitely not Broncos. And I think we're going to no on Packers as well.
Chargers, Chiefs.
Chiefs, yes. Chargers, yeah, Chargers. I think they'll sort themselves out and pull themselves off.
Dolphins, Eagles.
Yes and yes.
And finally, the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes, Niners and no Vikings.
There we go. That is, can you pick the postseason? Yes or no?
I think I've got about 20 teams in the postseason now.
So I'll just do the top. So we went the Jaguars, Browns,
Okay.
Bills, Falcons, Lions, Ravens, Rams, Chargers, Chiefs, Dolphins, Eagles, Niners, Cowboys, Bengals. Bang on 14 teams.
Got me. Almost makes logical sense. I'll take that.
And there we go. That is that. Week 6 is in the book. Week 7 coming down the barrel. Unless there's any other business. James, any business from you? Paul, any business
Not
from
from
you?
me.
Nothing from me, sir.
Then it's my job to thank our fantastic guest, Mr. James Forrester Gray. Thank
Thank you for having me.
my glamorous co-host, Mr. Paul Williams. Thank you, the listener. Thank you, the watcher. Thank everybody and everything. Fantastic week has gone. A fantastic week to come. Tune in next week where there might be a guest. There might not. That's all I can say at this point in time. Who knows? Until then, it's bye from us. And we shall see you next time. Tatty byes.
Bye.
So there you go, what do you think to that? Big thank you for James for joining us. It's always nice to have a guest, get a guest perspective on things. Big thank you to you for joining us. If I can ask one thing before you go, please click the like button, share the podcast around, leave a review where you can leave a review, subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. There's a prize for if you're a subscriber. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There's social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. Tell us who you think is going to win the games this week. If you want to go up against us, we'll put you in the book, and if you win, prizes. Absolute prizes. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to CookieCast. Please make sure to like, share and subscribe.